And this was also kind of interesting, like your origins, your scholastic record, your size. Like you are not like standard government issue FBI agent
That is
physically,
true. That is, I didn't
but
fit the mold. You're right about that.
right.
Yeah, right.
So how like how was it you were able to get past all of those stereotypes and limitations?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I was an agent, you would look around and, uh, it really didn't fit the demographics in our society. I mean, everybody looked like an FBI agent, three-piece suit. They wore the wingtip shoes, what they called the thousand eyes, because the little holes that they have.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so they called it a thousand eyes. You walk around, some old guys, you wear the hat, and I'm sitting there, I'm more like this kid in the street.
Right.
And I think they might have been resentful of that. My grades were horrible, but let me tell you something. And getting back on the test, and I do believe in God. I'm a big believer in God and prayer. And I remember sitting there taking the FBI test, and I might as well have been reading something in Chinese. I had no clue. So I said, God, this is meant to be. It's got to be. I was just winging a lot of it. And I must have been touched by God, because when I got back the results, I said, damn. I said, this is pretty good. I got a good score out of it. And I tell you, I even in college, I graduated last in my class. I'm not one of those guys who are going to turn around and disguise his past. Hey, I graduated. I got the same sheepskin as you and everybody else. And even though I'm last, hey, it meant a lot to me to obtain, just like to get in the FBI. I mean, what an honor that is. I mean, here I am. Hoover dies in 72, and then I come in the FBI in 1980. There was no Cubans in it, and very limited Spanish speakers. It was not diversified. It was very few blacks, few women, few Hispanics and Asians. And I was
Predominantly white males.
all white males, and everybody looked the same. And, but I learned a lot from some amazing agents. Some of them did take me under their wings. I didn't, it was early on was getting adjusted into this world that from the outside is way different than the inside, but I managed to survive. And now, because I was working dope, because Spanish speaking, I was out of that environment. I was on the streets.
Right.
So in the streets, I had apartments. Didn't have to go in. So of course, the hair grows, the earring comes on, and all of that. And of course, I had to answer to agents who would come in with their wingtip shoes on and all. And, they just can't believe some of the stories, the places you go and you see. But the FBI and law enforcement rely on informants and relies on undercover, because that's what makes the cases. There's no such thing as a brilliant agent. You need to be in tune with the streets. And having guys like me out there, we get that perspective. And then, of course, we're rubbing elbows with informants, but you would rather have an agent testify than an informant, because they carry too much weight. So to me, when I was working cases, they immediately want to infuse me right in the case and remove the informant. So if we ever testify, my right hand goes up. I'm a special agent of the FBI. I'm not like, yeah, Sammy the Bull, I killed 19 people. And yeah, that's it. So who are you going to believe? You're going to go,
Right.
of course, with the agents.
What was the first assignment that you got as an FBI agent?
As an undercover?
Yeah.
The first one, you're going to kill me, but I can't really talk about it. But
Oh, shit.
it was dealing with Cubans and dealing with the Colombians, and it was one of those national security cases. It lasted 3 years. It was successful, and that. But then after that, it was mostly just working dope. When I came to New York, I was in Newark. Newark switched me over to Philly. And in Philly, we really were rocking and rolling over there. They have a big drug problem over there. Then I came to New York, and I was blessed to go on an NYPD FBI drug task force that was in Jackson Heights. I'm sure you're familiar with that. It's like a little
Of course.
Columbia.
Yeah,
So,
I know
yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
So we went working there in this case with the best detectives I've ever seen. These guys were first grade, second grade detectives, which in the NYPD that's a very important job, and special agents that watch your back. And of course, I was the only guy speaking Spanish, so I was doing all the undercover. I was buying dope. We were flipping guys. We're doing buy bust, where you buy from this informant, turns you on to a guy. You make a buy from him, you flip him. Now, or you find out where you get it from. We go work on that subject. So we'd be rocking and rolling in Jackson Heights during the 80s. And I tell you, we seized more dope, more money, and locked up more bodies in that squad. It was known as C-13 in the FBI. That, like I said, as these guys worked around the clock, and I was so grateful to have learned from them. And more important is they watch my back. Because when I'm out there dealing with these guys, and some of these guys that flip, we don't know what they're about. They're flipping because they want to pass, right? So meanwhile, you don't know if the guy all of a sudden is going to find religion, is going to come after me, or set me up for something. So of course, these guys that I had were great, and they would play roles like go and lay it out on the street like bums, and they'd be watching me, or they'd be out in cars and roofs, and it really it's an amazing privilege to have worked with the NYPD. But that's all I did. I was working dope all the time. Then I started working more undercover. Then I did around the country. I wound up doing in Hollywood, Florida. I did the Dirty Cops. I did a whole bunch of Dirty Cops. I did a bunch of Dirty Cops up in Boston. I did cops in Broward County. I did Puerto Rico, Broward Sheriff's Department. I did Puerto Rico many times, dope. So that's kind of what I started working. Then it became Russian organized crime, Asian organized crime. I developed a reputation, and some people say it was a gift or something, but I just felt natural in it. And I felt that the people that I worked with always had my back and really prepared me for that. I would meet informants, and they're mob guys, let's say, or dopers, and their stories became my stories. So when I'm sitting with a doper, I'm sounding like, yeah, I know that happened to me too, or I did the. So you had to have played that role, and I was grateful to have been afforded that opportunity. And my whole career, looking back, I made it to the end. I'm alive, maybe some health problems, but I made it. And that's why after 26 years, somebody was saying, well, stick around a little more. Now that you're getting older, you probably look even better with the part to do some other cases. I go, mister, I think I beat fate. I decided to spend time with my wife and daughter, especially my daughter, who was, I spent time with her, and I was grateful to have done that, and no regrets. But I do miss that. I miss working undercover. It was an adrenaline high. It's like you sit there with the bad guy. You set up a dope deal. You toast a drink, and I used to drink martinis, right? And you hold that glass, and you look at your hand, and it ain't shaking. It ain't shaking. I'm looking at his, and he's shaking. Or I look at his eyes, and I see this guy's buying my shit. He's buying everything I'm telling him, and I would feel good about it. And that, you can't buy that.
Right.
No drug could get you there.
Right.
No liquor could get you there. This is just, it was a high that, man, it felt really great having a deal go through. And then afterwards, when the guy's interview, he goes, man, I said, I knew this was a good deal. When I saw that big guy walk in that door, I said, that's it. We got it. We got the deal. This is it. Because, I didn't look like an agent. I had long hair, like I said, and my weight, which is, it was more from, I would approach it with dominance, but at the same time cautious, because You don't want to start doing undercover up here, like in your face, trying to be a badass, because you can't bring it down. So I would start right here. And if I need to kick it up, I kick it up. But that's the way you read people. And everybody's different. Every ethnic group is different. And you have to understand that and don't go in there hard charger because it's going to get you nowhere.
Right. Tell me about Van Marsh.
Oh, I love Van Marsh, man. He was an amazing agent. I met him in Philadelphia. Van Marsh was actually the creator of the case that I worked undercover. He was an undercover too. What he was from, you know what's a good question. I think he was from your way, Atlanta. Good guy, very competent. He created this undercover case, and it was him by himself. An undercover case where what do dopers do with their money, especially street guys? I mean, when you look at 5s, 10s, 20s, that's pretty bulky stuff, right? So they have no place to put it. You put it, some of them built little caletas, which are in the house, they put, or in the car, but the dog can sniff that. So we came along through this informant that Van flipped, who drove around a Rolls Royce and this medallion on him. And I write that about my book, Tony. His name was Tony Otto. Tony Gold, and the guy had jewelry up and down, and he would take them. He told them, said, listen, we're going to create a place right there in the Badlands of Philly. We're going to wire it up, and we're going to go undercover where we're going to offer these people the opportunity to convert all of this loose money into $100 bills brand new without any dope smell. So if the dogs came, they're not going to smell it. So they all came running. We were charging 3 points for that. So you would have guys show up with duffel bags, 500,000 of 20s, 10s, and then we would take the money and shake it into the bag, and you would find at the end cocaine residue, because that's how much cocaine there was in all the money out there because people touching it. So we converted, and then we would have surveillance squad follow where the guy would go. And there we worked that case separately, and then we were able to take it down and seize all that money back. So also at the same token, he would say to them, listen, if you're not interested in my service, I know you're a dealer, so I got a guy who buys. And that's where I came in. So he goes, he would buy the dope, and if he likes the dope and you doing business with us, then he'll get the dope from you, but we're going to get your money. So I made about 50 undercover buys just in that case, up and down in North Philly, like 2 kilos. I got kilos fronted to me. I mean, dope was rampant in Philadelphia, and I never seen it. And then when Colombians started working heroin, then that was when it went off the charts. Because heroin at that time used to come from China or Pakistan. Well, the Colombians brought in the Chinese chemists to their fields and started creating their own heroin, which was purer and cheaper than the Chinese and Pakistani.
Where was that heroin being produced?
It was produced in Colombia. In the fields of Colombia, they were producing heroin. And for instance, a kilo at that time was going maybe like $100, 125,000. They would come in at 85,000. It was almost 98% pure.
What years was this?
This had to be, I got transferred over there to New York in 91, had to be 1990.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was amazing what the Colombians were able to do at such a cheap price and a better heroin. So, of course, everybody's getting strung up now with heroin as opposed to back then it was coke. It's amazing. And then I moved to New York, got transferred to New York, and New York is where all roads lead to New York, And there, like I said, I worked, privileged of working with those NYPD guys and FBI agents, and a tremendous case. And there we were doing everything, heroin, ecstasy, coke, you name it, we did. There's no drug out there that I didn't buy. and
Right.
it was just it was just crazy the situation and the disregard. I mean, we make buys sometimes. The guy insists on near a school. I mean, how crazy is that? People are crazy, with this thing. In fact, we got so much of it. We were turning down weed. We got two truckloads, tons of marijuana, and we gave it to the locals because we didn't want to prosecute it because we're too busy rocking and rolling with the dope.
Right.
So, but the weed was coming in, and from Jamaica, the guys from Jamaica, we took them down on another case. And everywhere you turn, people were making money of dope back in the 80s. It was a
Let,
interesting
let me
time.
ask you this. Who was the Mercedes driving, Bacardi and Coke drinking, cigar smoking, drug dealer, and money launderer Manolo?
That's me, man. That was my style, man. I had a Cuban cigar, right? Drank my mentiritas, we used to call them, which are called lies in Spanish for rum and Coke, because it's known as Cuba Libre and Cuba ain't free. So we call it a lie. So I would do that. I would drive the beautiful Benz. We had access to everything. I had the pinky rings, like with the mop case, the Rolex watches, solid gold. I had beautiful suits. I had clothes on. The worst part is when the case, you asked me what I missed. I missed all my clothes and all my toys because I had to turn everything in. I'm talking about my suits and my underwear. Who's going to wear my underwear? Think about that. Yes, because it's government property. I had to turn my socks in, my shoes. So I went from like Bruno's, Ferragamo's to Kmart shoes.
Oh, you poor guy.
Yeah, it was tough. No, that was